Sony doesn't sell as many phones as Samsung or Apple, but it keeps making them. Most years I'm torn between being glad it still makes them for variety alone, and confused as to the business sense of it, with declining sales even in its home country signalling a seemingly inevitable demise. In those years I found that the focusing too much on the pro elements of the camera experience alienates other buyers. But for 2024 things have changed a bit, and I'm really glad this phone exists. I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews. Let's dive in. Now, it's always refreshing when a smartphone maker does things a little differently to the norm, especially when it comes to design, and especially when there are genuine pain points to address that can be addressed with a different approach. For instance, most smartphones have shiny or smooth metal edges and rear glass panels. For some, that can make holding onto them about as easy as gripping onto a live eel. A greased up, oily live eel. So what's the solution? For Sony, that means doing those contact points very differently. So there are subtle grooves running all the way around the edges of the phone, adding grip to the sides. And the entire rear of the phone is covered with raised dimples, again adding grip. Every part of the phone that comes into contact with your palm helps keep it in your hand. It won't slip easily, and you won't find it sliding off the arm of your sofa as easily as most other smartphones. In fact, a huge amount of the design choices are a focus on practicality. So you want to keep your old wired headphones, no problem, you've got a 3.5mm headphone port. You need access to your SIM and don't keep your SIM ejector tool on you at all times, Sony's got you with that too. You can remove the tray without a tool, just using your fingernail. And by the way, there's a micro SD card slot in there too for expanding the storage. Those aren't the only throwbacks to simpler times though. Sony remains one of the few with a dedicated camera button for launching the app and snapping photos, and if nothing else it just adds a pleasant tactile experience to using a phone. You even get a physical fingerprint sensor built into the side, so you don't need to rely on one that's in the display. It's right where my right thumb rests naturally, and for the most part it unlocks quickly. But here's where some of the efforts to be a practical device start to fall away a little. That fingerprint sensor is difficult to avoid when you grab your phone. So I find it would often register failed reads, and then I'd pick my phone up and it would ask me for my PIN number, just because it's brushed against the wrong part of my hand or the wrong finger. Similarly, Sony's move to a wider display with more skinny bezels has led to a lot of accidental touches on the display. For the first few days that I used it, I found myself tapping and swiping on the screen for it to completely ignore my inputs, then realizing after a while that a little bit of my palm or my thumb on the other hand was touching the display unawares. But since we're there, let's talk about that display, because in the past Sony has really pushed the boat out, offering a 4K panel on previous versions of the Xperia 1, and really, there was no particular benefit to having that many pixels on a display this small. So for 2024 it's gone backwards, all the way to Full HD+. And speaking of practicality again, it's also made it a less narrow aspect ratio, so the 21:9 cinematic look is gone, and now we have a 19.5:9 aspect instead, which is the same aspect ratio you get on the Samsung phones. It's far better visually having that extra surface area for displayed content, especially when gaming or watching anything at 16 or 18:9, or even viewing photos which are typically much wider. And as much as I like the narrow screen meant a narrow phone with older devices, its added versatility means consuming or creating media is a far less compromised experience. Now you could argue that it should be QHD+ to add sharpness, but in reality, with almost 400 pixels per inch, the 6.5-inch OLED display is plenty sharp enough. Text and details are crisp, and there's no way to distinguish individual pixels at arm's length. Plus that reduction in pixel count means less effort is needed to power that display, which means better battery life, which I'll get into a bit later. Now my only real complaint with the display is auto brightness. It's slow to respond when ambient lighting conditions change, especially when moving between shade and bright direct daylight outdoors, and that can make it hard to see at times. Now, as is typical for Sony, there are very Sony-like tools in the display settings, like the ability to manually adjust the white balance to a really granular level, or switching on creator mode, or artificially sharpening videos with the image enhancement toggle, all things that are throwbacks to its Bravia TV series. But let's move on and talk cameras now, and in the past Sony's efforts, at least with its apps, have made it clear that this phone is mostly for professional photographers and videographers, which alienates some buyers somewhat. It was perfect for those who wanted fine-tuned controls over everything, but not so much who just wanted to pick up the phone, snap a photo and get a good result straight away. But this time out, Sony's made things much easier, building on the simplicity that it introduced last year with the Xperia 1 Mark V in 2023. The camera now defaults to a fully automatic mode without any complicated controls on screen beyond temperature and brightness contrast sliders, so you can for the most part just point and shoot. And it is pretty wonderful, and features an automatic face and eye recognition ability to focus on the nearest eye of your subject, whether it be an animal or a human, and then snaps and processes the shots quickly and easily. And the thing I love about it in general is that it doesn't have that extreme processing you'd find on a Pixel or a Samsung phone. Colors and textures look almost as they do to the naked eye without any extreme artificial looking textures and color saturation. What's really great about this particular camera system is the variety and the versatility offered by the focal lengths. You get your primary and ultra-wide cameras as normal, but there's also a periscope zoom which can shift from 3.5 times to 7.1 times continuously and optically. Most phones hit about 5 times zoom and then have to rely on digital cropping and AI processing to sharpen images beyond that. Now in theory then that should mean brilliant sharp images all the way up to 7.1 times, but the reality, likely down to the 12 megapixel sensor in the zoom camera, that pictures at the end of the scale do get a bit grainy looking, particularly in the shade away from bright direct sunlight, and can also often end up washing out bright colors to the point where they look grey. But on the plus side, this camera system does enable one of the best macro systems I've seen in a smartphone to date. It's all quite manual, in that you have to switch to a dedicated macro mode and then slide a manual focus slider on the screen until the part that you want in focus is highlighted with yellow. And you have to keep a very steady hand. But if you do, you're rewarded with an incredibly sharp, clean image of small objects from within a few centimeters. Whether it be the smiley face on a Lego miniature, or tiny bugs, or weave textures of a cloth-bound book, it'll look great. And you can shoot video in this mode too, as long as you're happy with 1080p resolution. But similarly, the 2x zoom option, which crops into the main sensor, will also get you pretty close to small objects and enable you to shoot really nice looking portrait. With all of that combined with the ultra wide, you get so much ability here. But it isn't all rosy. Sony still has a bit of a weakness when it comes to shooting handheld at nighttime. Where other cameras have fine-tuned their night mode algorithms so that you can just point and shoot and get an in-focus, sharp, vibrant shot easily, Sony's results aren't as reliably sharp. I sometimes found the camera struggled with focusing at nighttime, and end results were often grainy or noisy, but also the algorithms didn't always completely get rid of the motion blur that comes from shooting handheld. Now I did like that Sony doesn't attempt to ramp up the brightness and colors too much to look like daytime like Samsung and Pixel might, but at the same time it still needs the basics improved. Now if I asked you to predict what the best feature about this Sony Xperia phone was before even seeing or hearing about it, there's a good chance you would pick the display or the cameras, but it's not. With the Xperia 1 Mark VI, those are both great this time too, but it was the battery life that really blew me away. Now, I am a pretty light user in general, and I live in an area that still doesn't have 5G widespread, and so my phone battery consumption is rarely huge. Getting to the end of a second day with a big flagship phone is usually what I'd consider good performance for my own use case, but Sony's Xperia blew past that. It's advertised as being a 2-day battery despite being 5,000 mAh, but at a push with light use, I could get it to the end of a third day and only needed to charge it on the morning of the fourth when it eventually completely drained. I suspect even the heaviest users might just be able to push this to the end of a second day, or at the very least through a day and a half before having to reach for your charger. Even measuring things objectively, a 1-hour Netflix stream only drains about 5% battery, as does a 30-minute stint on Mario Kart Tour. And once empty, charging it up again is a breeze, but only if you already have a fast power delivery charger and a cable, because the phone doesn't come with either in the box. You literally just get the phone and some booklets and a box. Now speaking of performance, it feels and acts like a flagship phone. Again, because of that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Games and apps launch quickly, and even in benchmark testing, the Sony compared pretty much bang on with the S24 and S24 Plus. It's fast and smooth and gets the job done. The only time I really felt it get warm under load was when I was putting it through extreme benchmarking tests, which is pretty normal, and even then it didn't get uncomfortably hot. Now in the end, the Xperia 1 Mark VI represents one of the first Xperia phones to come with no massive compromises. It's no longer a phone that will only appeal to Sony camera users or professional photographers and videographers. Yes, it's got a camera that still has lots of those pro tools, but the easy automatic camera mode combined with some brilliant results, market-leading battery life and flagship performance wrapped in a grippy, skinny, lightweight phone are things that anyone can appreciate. What you might not appreciate, however, is the price tag. In the UK, it's got a starting price of £1,299. So Sony is asking for a lot of money for a phone that in most ways is about the same as a Galaxy S24 Plus. So as brilliant as this Sony phone is at £1,300 in the UK and no availability in the US, it's probably the best phone that nobody will buy. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Are you going to take the plunge on a Sony phone just to try something new this year? Let me know. Or you can get me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.